The Galactic Council station floated in space like a massive crystal palace. Ships from 100 different worlds docked at its gleaming ports every day. Inside the main assembly hall, Ambassador Elena Reeves stood before the 12 most powerful beings in the known galaxy. Her dark suit looked simple next to their elaborate robes and ceremonial armor. But her eyes were steady, her voice calm. She had been negotiating for 3 months. Earth wanted to join the galactic community. The Council was not making it easy. They saw humans as newcomers, primitives who had barely left their own solar system. Every meeting felt like a test. Behind Elena, her son Marcus sat quietly at a small desk. He wore an expensive gray suit that fit him perfectly. His tie was straight, his posture relaxed. He looked like any other diplomatic assistant, taking notes on a tablet, occasionally fetching documents his mother needed. The council members barely noticed him. Marcus was 24 years old. He had his mother's dark hair and calm expression. When aliens looked at him, they saw a soft human. Young, polite, harmless. They had no idea what he really was. The day started normally. Elena presented Earth's latest proposal on trade agreements. The council listened with their usual skepticism. Then Overseer Krell stood up. He was a Vaxxan, tall and reptilian, with scales that gleamed like copper under the lights. His eyes were cold. "Ambassador Reeves," Krell said, his voice smooth. "We have received disturbing information about your species." Elena did not flinch. "What information?" "Evidence suggests Earth is developing prohibited military technology, weapons that violate galactic law." Krell gestured, and a hologram appeared in the center of the room. It showed technical schematics, facility blueprints, classified documents. Elena studied the images. Her jaw tightened. "This information is fabricated. Someone has doctored these documents." "You deny it?" Krell asked. "I demand a proper investigation. Verify the sources, check the data. This is a setup." Murmurs rippled through the council. Some members looked uncomfortable. Others seemed satisfied. Krell raised his hand for silence. "The council will investigate," Krell said. "But until we are satisfied, we must take precautions. Your species has proven unpredictable." "What kind of precautions?" Elena asked, though she already felt the trap closing. "Insurance. We will detain a member of your delegation while we investigate, to ensure cooperation." Elena's face went pale. "You cannot be serious. That violates diplomatic protocol." "The council votes," Krell announced, ignoring her protest. One by one, the council members raised their hands. 10 votes for detention, only 2 against. Elena watched in disbelief. This was supposed to be a civilized forum. Instead, it felt like a kangaroo court. "The human attaché will be detained," Krell declared, pointing at Marcus. Elena spun around. "No, take me instead. Marcus is a civilian. He has nothing to do with military matters." "The decision is made," Krell said. Heavy footsteps echoed through the hall. A dozen enforcers entered, alien soldiers in powered armor. They surrounded Marcus. Marcus closed his tablet slowly. He stood up, straightened his tie, and looked at his mother. Elena saw something flash in his eyes, something that made her breath catch. For just a moment, Marcus did not look like her gentle son. He looked like something else entirely. "Mom," Marcus said quietly. "It's okay. I'll be fine." "Marcus, don't trust me," he said. His voice was calm, but there was steel underneath. He smiled at her, that familiar, gentle smile. Then he put his hands behind his back and nodded to the enforcers. "I'm ready." The lead enforcer bound Marcus's wrists with energy cuffs. Marcus did not resist. He walked calmly between the armored guards, head high, as they led him out of the assembly hall. Elena watched him go, her hands clenched into fists. Krell smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. The transport ship took Marcus to a massive asteroid 3 hours away from the station, the Void Keep. Even the name sounded ominous. It was the Council's maximum security detention center, carved deep into solid rock. The worst criminals in the galaxy ended up here. Murderers, pirates, war criminals, and now, apparently, diplomatic attachés. Warden Zix met them at the processing center. He was a Clixian, an insectoid alien with 4 arms and compound eyes that reflected in multiple colors. He looked Marcus up and down with obvious contempt. Another human, Zix clicked in his chirping voice. Soft, weak. You will not last long in Gen Pop, little diplomat. Marcus said nothing. He let them scan him, photograph him, strip away his belongings. They took his suit jacket, his tie, everything except his white dress shirt and black pants. They kept the energy cuffs on his wrists. Cell Block 7, Zix ordered. General population. Let the others teach him about life in the Void Keep. The guards laughed as they pushed Marcus through heavy security doors. The sounds changed as they went deeper. Shouts, roars, the clang of metal on metal. Cell Block 7 was chaos barely contained. Aliens of every species mixed together in a massive common area. Some were huge, covered in scars and makeshift weapons. Others looked predatory and cruel. All of them turned when the new prisoner arrived. They threw Marcus into a small cell and removed his cuffs. The door slammed shut behind him. Through the transparent barrier, he could see dozens of eyes watching him, sizing him up, marking him as prey. Marcus sat down on the hard bench. He rolled his shoulders, working out the stiffness from the cuffs. Then, very carefully, he began to unbutton his sleeves and roll them up. As the fabric moved, tattoos became visible on his forearms. Military symbols, unit insignias, things the Council had never seen because he always kept them covered. There were scars, too. Old ones, faded but deep. Knife wounds, burn marks. The kind of scars that came from surviving things that should have killed you. Marcus looked at his hands. Strong hands, steady hands, hands that had done things the galaxy would never believe. He whispered to himself, too quiet for anyone else to hear. But his voice was cold, certain, and utterly calm. They have no idea what they've done. Elena Reeves did not sleep that night. She sat in her quarters on the Council station, staring at her communication terminal. Her hands shook as she typed an urgent message to Earth. They took Marcus, detained without cause. Send help immediately. The response came back 30 minutes later. It was from the Secretary of State himself. Elena read it twice, unable to believe what she was seeing. We are dispatching appropriate resources. Keep the Council talking. Trust the process, that was it. No rescue mission. No threats of retaliation. Just calm instructions to continue negotiations. Elena wanted to scream. Her son was locked in an alien prison, and Earth was telling her to trust the process. She did not understand. She could not understand. In the Void Keep, morning came without sunlight. The cells stayed dim, lit only by harsh artificial lights. Marcus woke early, as he always did. Years of training made sleep schedules automatic. He stood stretched and looked out at the common area through his cell barrier. Other prisoners were already awake. Many of them were watching him. Word had spread through the cell block. New prisoner, human, soft-looking. Easy target. The barrier opened. Recreation time. Marcus walked out calmly, hands in his pockets. The common area was huge, a space carved out of the asteroid and lined with reinforced walls. Guards watched from elevated platforms, but they rarely intervened. As far as they were concerned, what happened in Gen Pop was the prisoner's business. Marcus had made it halfway across the room when 3 massive figures blocked his path. Krogars. They looked like upright bears crossed with bulls, covered in thick fur and muscle. The smallest one was 7 feet tall. The leader had scars across his face and arms the size of tree trunks. Pretty human, the leader growled. His voice was deep and rough. Nice white shirt. Will look good covered in your blood. The other prisoners backed away, forming a circle. They wanted to watch. Entertainment was rare in the Void Keep. Marcus looked up at the Krogar. His expression was polite, almost apologetic. Gentlemen, I urge you to reconsider. I'm trying to avoid violence, the Krogars laughed. It was a harsh, mocking sound. The leader reached out with one massive hand to grab Marcus by the throat. Marcus moved. It happened so fast that most of the watching prisoners missed it. One moment, the Krogar was reaching. The next, Marcus had his arm, twisted it at an impossible angle, and snapped both bones with a sound like breaking wood. The Krogar screamed. Marcus did not let go. He used the creature's own momentum to spin him around and slam his face into the metal floor. 3 times. Fast, controlled, precise. The Krogar stopped moving. The second Krogar roared and charged. Marcus stepped aside at the last possible second and redirected the charge into a support pillar. The impact made the entire room shake. The Krogar slid down the pillar and did not get up. The third Krogar was smarter. He pulled a sharpened piece of metal from his belt, a makeshift shiv. He lunged at Marcus, aiming for the stomach. Marcus caught his wrist mid-thrust, twisted, reversed the blade, and in one smooth motion, drove the shiv through the Krogar's shoulder, pinning him to the wall like a butterfly in a display case. The Krogar howled, hanging there, unable to pull himself free. 11 seconds. That was how long the entire fight lasted. Marcus stood in the center of the room, breathing normally, his white shirt still pristine. Not a drop of blood on him. He looked at the watching prisoners. Nobody moved. Nobody said a word. Marcus walked to the nearest guard station. "I need cleaning supplies," he said politely. "Someone should attend to the injured." The guard stared at him like he had grown a second head. In the security center, Warden Zix watched the footage for the 5th time. He had called in his senior staff. They all stood in shocked silence. "Play it again," Zix ordered. They watched Marcus dismantle 3 of the most dangerous prisoners in the Void Keep. The speed, the efficiency, the absolute control. This was not a civilian defending himself. This was a trained killer operating at peak performance. "Who is this human?" one of the guards whispered. Zix did not answer. He was too busy trying to process what he had seen. Back in his cell, Marcus sat quietly. Word was spreading fast through the prison. Whispers traveled from cell to cell. The human was not what he seemed. The human in the suit was dangerous. Marcus did not care about the whispers. He was thinking about his mother. She would be worried. She would be trying to get him out. But Marcus knew something Elena did not know. He had not always been a diplomatic attaché. 10 years ago, Marcus Reeves was someone else entirely. He had a different name then, a code name. In the darkest corners of Earth's military intelligence, people called him Reaper 1. He was 17 when they recruited him. Young, fast, smart, and empty inside after losing his father to an alien raid, the kind of recruit special operations loved. They trained him in ways that broke most candidates. Survival in hostile environments, close quarters combat, infiltration, assassination, languages, cultures, how to kill in 100 different ways. He was good at it. Too good. By the time he was 20, he had completed 47 missions. Most of them were classified so deeply that only 3 people in the entire government knew the details. He eliminated threats that Earth could not acknowledge. He stopped conflicts before they started. He did things in the dark so humanity could survive in the light. Then came the incident. A first contact gone wrong. A hostile alien species that tried to establish a foothold on Mars. Marcus led the team that stopped them. It was brutal, violent, and completely off the books. When it was over, 89 alien combatants were dead. Marcus's team had lost 3 members. The victory came with a cost. Marcus saw things during that operation that changed him. Not the violence. He was used to violence. But the aftermath, the politics. The way governments lied about what happened. The way they painted enemies as monsters and heroes as myths. He retired at 21. Disappeared from the records. Got a new identity. Went to university. Studied diplomatic relations of all things. When his mother became an ambassador, he quietly joined her staff. He wanted to build bridges instead of burning them, but you could take the soldier out of the war. You could not take the war out of the soldier. Elena sat in her quarters, unable to focus on anything. She had tried to work on her speech for tomorrow's session, but the words blurred together. Finally, she did something she had sworn never to do. She accessed Marcus's sealed military file. It required her ambassadorial clearance plus 3 levels of security authorization. She had to use her biometric signature and confirm her identity twice. The system warned her that unauthorized access would result in criminal charges. She did not care. She needed to understand what was happening. The file opened. Elena began to read. 3 hours later, she sat back in her chair, her face pale. The coffee beside her had gone cold. Her hands trembled slightly as she closed the file. Mission count: 147 successful operations. 89 classified extraterrestrial threat neutralizations. Expert in 17 different combat systems. Fluent in 12 languages, 6 of them alien. Psychological evaluation: stable but extremely dangerous. Do not deploy without explicit authorization. Codename: Reaper 1. Current status: retired. Condition: classified. Elena understood now why Earth had responded so calmly. They were not worried about Marcus. They knew exactly who he was and what he could do. The Galactic Council had not detained a harmless civilian. They had caged a weapon, and they had no idea, she whispered to the empty room. "Oh, Marcus, what are you going to do?" Overseer Krell sat in his private office watching news feeds from across the galaxy. The humans were becoming a problem, not because they were dangerous, because they were unpredictable. They did not follow the established order. They asked questions. They challenged traditions. They were chaos wrapped in diplomatic language. When he heard about the incident in the Void Keep, he smiled. The human attaché had assaulted 3 prisoners. Perfect. This was exactly the evidence he needed to prove that humans were violent and unstable. But then he read the full report. His smile faded. The human had not just fought. He had dismantled professional killers in seconds with surgical precision. Security footage showed movements that should not be possible for a civilian. This was not a frightened diplomat defending himself. This was a trained operative. Krell made a decision. Instead of releasing Marcus Reeves, he would move him to the Black Wing, the most secure section of the Void Keep, the place where they kept the truly dangerous prisoners. Reality warpers, telepaths, beings who could destroy planets if left unchecked. If the human was dangerous, Krell would prove it. And if the human was just lucky, the Black Wing would break him. Either way, Krell would have his evidence that humans could not be trusted. He sent the order. Transfer the human to Black Wing. Solitary confinement. Maximum security protocols. The transfer happened at midnight. 20 elite enforcers came for Marcus. They wore full-powered armor, the kind designed to handle beings with 10 times human strength. They carried weapons that could stun creatures the size of elephants. All of this for one human in a white shirt. Marcus stood when his cell opened. He looked at the assembled force with mild curiosity. The lead enforcer pointed a stun rifle at his chest. Hands out. "One wrong move, human, and we will put you down." Marcus extended his hands. "I haven't made a wrong move in 7 years. I'm not starting today." They bound his wrists with energy cuffs rated for superhuman strength. They put a neural collar around his neck. They surrounded him in a formation designed to prevent escape. And they marched him through the prison like he was the most dangerous thing in the galaxy. Prisoners in Gen Pop watched through their cell barriers. Nobody spoke. Nobody laughed. The human in the white shirt had earned their respect. Or perhaps their fear. The Black Wing was deep in the asteroid, past layers of security that would stop armies. The walls here were lined with exotic materials. The air hummed with energy fields. Each cell was a technological marvel designed to contain the impossible. They put Marcus in cell 7. The moment he stepped inside, gravity shifted. It felt like standing at the bottom of an ocean. Neural suppressors activated, sending waves of disorienting energy through his brain. Sensory dampeners stripped away sound and smell. The cell was designed to break prisoners through isolation and discomfort, to make them compliant. Marcus sat down cross-legged on the floor. He closed his eyes, and he began to meditate. The guards watched his biometric readings. Heart rate dropped, brain activity slowed to minimal levels. Within minutes, 90% of his biological functions had shut down to conservation mode. The guards thought the neural suppressors were working. They were not. Marcus was simply that controlled. He had learned this technique years ago. Meditation so deep it mimicked death. It let him survive hostile environments, conserve oxygen, withstand torture. He could stay like this for days if necessary. While Marcus sat in his cell, Elena was making moves of her own. She had spent 3 days digging through council records, calling in favors, building alliances. Finally, she found what she was looking for. Counselor Liss, a sylph. Sylphs were energy beings, elegant and wise. Liss had always seemed sympathetic to Earth during negotiations. Elena arranged a private meeting in a secure room off the main corridors. Liz arrived in her luminous form, colors shifting like oil on water. "Ambassador Reeves," Liz said, her voice like wind chimes. "You look troubled. They took my son. Based on fabricated evidence. I need to know what's really happening." Liz was quiet for a long moment. Then she spoke, her voice heavy with something that might have been guilt. "Krell is staging a coup. He wants to seize control of the council. To do that, he needs support from the military factions. They have been looking for an enemy, a threat to rally against. Krell decided to manufacture one. Humanity," Elena said flatly. "Yes, the evidence against Earth was falsified. Krell created it himself. He planned to use the investigation to stir up anti-human sentiment across the council. Your son was supposed to be a pawn. Harmless insurance to ensure cooperation. But Marcus is not harmless," Elena said. "No. And now Krell has a new plan. He is going to execute your son publicly. He will claim the human attacked guards, proved himself dangerous. It will trigger outrage on Earth. Krell is hoping humanity will respond with force. Then he will have his war, his enemy, and his justification to take control of the council military." Elena felt ice in her veins. "When?" 3 days. "He is moving your son to an interrogation facility first, to extract a confession. If the human survives the interrogation, he will be executed as a hostile threat." Elena stood immediately. She pulled out her communicator. "I need to contact Earth. We need a rescue mission now." She sent the message, waited. The response came back within minutes. Elena read it 3 times, her face growing paler with each reading. "Negative. Marcus has his orders. Maintain diplomatic posture. Do not interfere." "Orders?" Elena whispered. "He's a civilian. What orders could he possibly have?" But deep down she knew. She had read his file. She knew what he was. And suddenly she understood. This was not an accident. This was not a mistake. Earth had known Krell would take someone. They had put Marcus in the room deliberately. They needed the council to see what happened when you cornered a human. When you pushed them too far, Marcus was not a hostage. He was a message. 2 days later, they came for Marcus again. This time they did not send enforcers. They sent interrogators. 3 of them. Specialists in pain and persuasion. They brought him to a room with no windows. The walls were bare metal. In the center was a chair with restraints. Beside it, a machine that looked like a metal spider. Krell was there, watching from behind a protective barrier. He wanted to see this personally. They strapped Marcus into the chair. The spider machine moved, extending probes that attached to his temples, his neck, his spine, a vaccine pain inducer. It could stimulate every nerve ending in the body simultaneously, make victims feel like they were burning alive from the inside. "Tell us about Earth's weapons programs," the lead interrogator said. "There are no illegal weapons programs," Marcus said calmly. The interrogator activated the machine. Marcus's entire body went rigid. His eyes widened. But he did not scream. He gritted his teeth and endured. 5 minutes, 10, 15. The interrogators increased the intensity. Marcus trembled, sweat pouring down his face. But he did not break. He did not confess to anything. He barely made a sound. After 45 minutes, Krell stepped forward. He looked down at Marcus with cold eyes. "What are you?" Krell asked. Marcus looked up at him. Despite the pain, despite everything, he smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "I'm a diplomat's son, and you've made a terrible mistake," Krell snarled. He reached for the controls himself, pushed the pain inducer to lethal levels. Energy flooded through Marcus's body. The probes sparked. Warning alarms blared, and Marcus caught one of the neural probes in his teeth. Bit down, shattered it. Feedback surged through the system. The energy cuff sparked and died. Marcus's hands were suddenly free. Alarms screamed throughout the facility. Marcus stood up slowly, tearing away the remaining probes. He rolled his shoulders, cracked his neck, looked at Krell through the protective barrier. "I really tried to do this the diplomatic way," Marcus said quietly. Then he moved. The security footage from Blackwing went dark. Every camera in the sector shut down simultaneously. Not broken, not damaged, deliberately disabled. Someone had accessed the systems and cut them off with surgical precision. Warden Zix watched his monitors turn to static. He activated emergency protocols, sent every available guard to Blackwing. But by the time they arrived, it was already too late. The interrogation room was empty. The door had been torn off its hinges from the inside. The three interrogators were unconscious, zip-tied with their own restraints. Alive but badly beaten, Marcus Reeves was gone. Marcus moved through the corridors of Blackwing like a ghost. He had memorized the layout during his transfer, counted steps, noted security stations, marked exits. Old habits from old training. His white shirt was torn now, stained with blood. Not all of it was his. Guards found him at Junction 7. 10 of them, fully armed, backed by automated defense turrets. They opened fire without warning. Stun rounds filled the corridor with crackling blue energy. Marcus did not slow down. He moved between the shots like water flowing around rocks, grabbed a guard's weapon mid-swing, used it to deflect incoming fire, closed the distance in 3 seconds. What followed was not a fight. It was a demonstration. Each guard went down with calculated efficiency. Disarmed, disabled, not dead, but definitely not getting back up. Marcus took a piece of armor from each one. A chest plate here, a gauntlet there. He was building protection, adapting, improvising. By the time he reached the central security hub, he looked like something from a nightmare. Human in shape but covered in mismatched alien armor, weapons strapped to his back and belt. His face was calm. His eyes were cold. This was not the polite diplomat who had arrived days ago. This was Reaper 1. He accessed a terminal, his fingers flying across the alien interface. Years of training in multiple computer systems made the task simple. He downloaded files, planted data bombs, created backdoors into the Council's secure networks, and he found evidence. Everything he needed. Krell's fabricated documents, communications between conspirators, plans for the coup, financial records showing bribes and payoffs. Marcus copied it all, encrypted it, and set it to broadcast on a timer. Then he started hunting. Krell had 11 co-conspirators, council members and military commanders who had helped fabricate evidence against Earth. Marcus found them one by one across the station. He moved through vents, maintenance tunnels, service corridors, places security did not watch carefully, places people did not expect threats to come from. General Vorn was first, a military commander who had supplied the fake technical schematics. Marcus found him in his private quarters. Vorn reached for his sidearm. Marcus was faster. 3 moves. Vorn was on the floor unconscious, the evidence of his crimes displayed on every screen in his room. Counselor Thex was next. Then Administrator Quinn. Then Intelligence Chief Mordax. One by one, Marcus took them down. Non-lethal but thorough. Each one left alive but incapacitated, surrounded by holographic evidence of their treason. While chaos spread through the station, Elena was in the council chamber. She had called an emergency session, using every diplomatic trick she knew. Counselor Liss had helped, gathering the few council members who could still be trusted. Krell arrived, flanked by guards. He looked smug, confident. He thought he was about to watch Elena beg for her son's life. Instead, she stood tall and presented evidence. Members of the council, I have proof that Overseer Krell has fabricated evidence against humanity. He has staged a conspiracy to seize control of this council through fear and manipulation. Krell laughed. Ambassador, you are desperate. These wild accusations, every screen in the chamber activated. Marcus appeared on all of them simultaneously. His face was bruised, his makeshift armor stained, but his eyes were sharp and clear. Members of the Galactic Council, my name is Marcus Reeves. You were told I am a threat. You are right. The screen split into multiple feeds. Each one showed a different conspirator, unconscious or restrained, with their crimes displayed beside them. Financial records, communications, everything. Overseer Krell fabricated evidence to start a war. He wanted to use humanity as his enemy. His justification to take control of Council military forces. These are his co-conspirators. This is their conspiracy, and this is the proof. The council chamber erupted into chaos. Council members shouted questions. Guards did not know who to arrest. Krell tried to speak, to deny everything, but the evidence was overwhelming. And then Marcus delivered his final message. His voice was calm, almost gentle. But there was steel underneath. You detained me. You tortured me. You tried to make me a pawn in your political games. But I am not a pawn. I am a reminder. Humanity does not want war. We want peace. We want cooperation. But if you force our hand, you will learn what we are truly capable of. Consider this my resignation from your hospitality. The screens went dark. Krell realized what was happening. He ran from the chamber, his guards following. He needed to get to his ship to escape, to regroup. But when he reached his private docking bay, he found Marcus waiting. Krell's flagship was a massive vessel, heavily armed and shielded. It should have been impossible to breach. But Marcus had already taken hostages. 5 people, including Counselor Liss and 3 human staff members from the embassy. They were inside the ship. Krell had grabbed them in his panic, thinking they would be insurance. The ship's weapons were armed. Its shields were at maximum. Krell sent a message to the station. "Stand down or I will destroy this ship and everyone on it. The station will be caught in the blast. Thousands will die." Council security forces surrounded the ship, but they could not act. The shields were too strong. Any attack might trigger the self-destruct. Elena watched from the council chamber, her heart in her throat. She saw her son standing at the docking bay entrance, alone, unarmed, facing an impossible situation. She grabbed a communicator. "Marcus, stand down. Let the professionals handle this." Marcus looked up at the nearest camera. He smiled, that same gentle smile he had given her days ago. "Sorry, Mom, this is what I'm good at." He turned to the ship, spoke loud enough for the external sensors to pick up. "Overseer Krell, you wanted to know what humans are capable of. Let the hostages go and I will show you." Krell's voice came over the ship's speakers. "You are bluffing. You cannot breach my shields. You have no weapons." "Wrong answer," Marcus said softly. Then he did something that should have been impossible. He walked to the maintenance airlock beside the docking bay, put on an emergency pressure suit that was 3 sizes too big for him, took a deep breath and stepped into the void. Space was not meant for humans. The cold, the vacuum, the radiation. A normal person would have seconds before consciousness failed. Minutes before death. Marcus had been trained to survive in hostile environments. Hostile planets, toxic atmospheres, deep water. He had learned to control his oxygen consumption, to manage his body's systems consciously. The pressure suit helped, but it was his training that kept him alive. He used the station's exterior structure to propel himself toward the ship. Found a maintenance hatch that shields did not cover fully, forced it open with tools he had taken from the airlock. Inside the ship, alarms blared. Krell saw him on internal sensors. Impossible. The human should be dead, should be frozen in space, but Marcus Reeves was climbing through the ship's infrastructure like he had done it 1,000 times before. Because he had. Different ships, different configurations, but the principles were always the same. Marcus found the hostages first, cut them free, sent them to escape pods with simple instructions. They launched moments later, picked up by Council security. Then Marcus found Krell. The Overseer was on the bridge, surrounded by his elite guards. 6 of them, all trained warriors. Krell stood behind them, smug again, thinking numbers would save him. "Kill him," Krell ordered. Marcus moved through them like they were not there. 6 guards, 11 seconds. When it was over, Krell stood alone, his back against the ship's controls. Marcus stood 3 feet away, breathing hard, bruised, bleeding, but still standing. "It's over, Krell." "You will kill me," Krell said. It was not a question, just resignation. "No," Marcus said. "I could kill you in 17 ways before you finish your next breath. But I won't." He grabbed Krell by the collar, zip-tied his hands. "You wanted to prove humans are monsters. I'm going to prove we're better than you." Marcus dragged Krell back to the council station, through the docking bay, through the corridors, past shocked guards and stunned onlookers, all the way to the council chamber. He threw Krell at the feet of the council. The Overseer landed hard, hands still bound. "You're prisoner," Marcus said, "to stand trial for conspiracy, treason, and attempted mass murder." "I believe that is how civilized societies handle criminals." Then his knees buckled. He had pushed too hard, endured too much. Elena caught him before he hit the floor. Her son, her gentle, terrible son. "I've got you," she whispered. "I've got you." Marcus managed a weak smile. "Told you I'd be fine." Then he passed out. Human after all. The Galactic Council met in emergency session 3 days later. Every member was present. The chamber was packed with observers, diplomats, and media from across the galaxy. This was history happening in real time. The evidence against Krell and his conspirators was overwhelming. Financial records, encrypted communications, testimony from witnesses. The fabricated documents had been traced back to their sources. Every lie had been exposed. The vote was unanimous. Krell was stripped of his position. His co-conspirators were arrested. Charges of treason, conspiracy, and attempted genocide were filed. The Vaxxan people issued a formal apology, stating that Krell did not represent their values. Then came the vote that mattered most. A formal apology to humanity, recognition that the charges against Earth had been fabricated, and a proposal to grant Earth full membership in the Galactic Council. 12 votes. All in favor. Ambassador Elena Reeves stood to accept on behalf of Earth. Her voice was steady, her words carefully chosen. But inside she felt a storm of emotions, relief, pride, exhaustion, and underneath it all a deep unease about what had really happened. That evening she found Marcus in the medical wing. He had spent 2 days recovering from his injuries. Broken ribs, severe bruising, nerve damage from the torture. The doctors said he would heal completely, but he needed rest. He was sitting up in bed when she arrived, reading something on a tablet. He looked up and smiled. That same gentle smile, like nothing had happened. "Hey, Mom." Elena sat down beside his bed. For a long moment she just looked at him. Her son. The boy she had raised. The man she barely knew. "What were your real orders from Earth?" she asked finally. Marcus set down the tablet. He looked at his hands, those strong, steady hands. To ensure humanity's acceptance into the Galactic Council, by any means necessary. They knew, Elena said. It was not a question. They knew Krell would make a move. Intelligence had been tracking his conspiracy for months. They knew he would try to take leverage. Someone close to the negotiations. Someone he thought was harmless. So they sent you, knowing you would be taken. Yes. The Council needed to understand humanity, not through words or treaties. Through action. They needed to see what we become when we are pushed. What we choose when we have the power to destroy. Elena felt her throat tighten. You could have died. Maybe, but I didn't. And now the galaxy knows. We are not weak. We are not prey. But more importantly, we choose mercy even when we do not have to. That is the message Earth wanted to send. Elena understood then. The whole thing had been calculated. Earth's calm response, Marcus's patience, even his final choice to capture Krell instead of killing him. All of it was designed to show the galaxy who humans really were. Dangerous. Capable but fundamentally civilized. Were you ever really retired? She asked. Marcus smiled sadly. I retired from war, Mom. Not from protecting what matters. I came with you because I wanted to help. To be useful. To make sure nothing happened to you. And when Earth called you back, they did not call me back. They just reminded me that I had a choice. Go with you as a civilian, or go with you as an insurance policy. I chose to be ready. Just in case. Elena reached out and took his hand. I read your file. Reaper 1. 147 missions. I had no idea. That was the point. Nobody was supposed to know. The work I did was necessary, but it was dark. Ugly. When I retired, I wanted to leave that behind. Build something instead of breaking things. But some skills do not go away. Do you regret it? What you did here? Marcus thought for a moment, then shook his head. No, Krell wanted war. He wanted to use humanity as his enemy. If I had not stopped him, thousands would have died. Maybe millions. This way we got peace. Earth got its seat at the table. And the galaxy learned an important lesson. What lesson? That we are kind until we cannot afford to be. And nobody wants to see what we are like when kindness fails. 1 week later, Earth held a formal ceremony at the Council Station. Flags from 100 worlds hung in the Great Hall. Ambassador Reeves stood at the podium, delivering a speech about cooperation and shared futures. Marcus stood behind her, wearing a new suit. Perfectly tailored, dark gray with a blue tie. Every injury had healed. He looked exactly like what he was supposed to be. A quiet diplomatic assistant, harmless, professional, forgettable. But whispers followed him wherever he went. Delegates from across the galaxy found reasons to introduce themselves. They all knew who he was now, what he had done. The human who broke the Void Keep. The diplomat's son who brought down a conspiracy. Doom in a suit. The replacement for Overseer Krell was a nervous Vaxxan named Theron. He approached Marcus after the ceremony, clearly uncomfortable. His hands trembled slightly as he extended one for a handshake. Mr. Reeves. On behalf of the Vaxxan people, I want to apologize for what happened. Krell's actions were shameful. Marcus shook his hand firmly but gently. His smile was warm. No need to apologize, Counselor Theron. Every species has individuals who lose their way. What matters is how we respond when we find them. I look forward to working with you on building a better future. Theron nodded gratefully and left quickly. Marcus watched him go, that patient look back in his eyes. The look of a predator who had decided not to hunt. That night, Marcus and Elena stood on an observation deck, watching Earth rise over the station's horizon. The blue planet looked peaceful from here. Beautiful. It was hard to believe it was home to the species that had just shocked the entire galaxy. They will never forget this, you know. Elena said, what you did. You have changed how the galaxy sees humanity forever. Good. Maybe that will prevent the next Krell from trying something similar. What will you do now? Earth offered you a position. Head of security for all human diplomatic missions. You could write your own salary. Marcus shook his head. I think I'll stick with being your attaché. If that is okay with you. You do not want something more? Something official? I had official titles before, ranks, code names. They did not make me happy. I just want to help. Keep you safe. Maybe stop the occasional conspiracy. Nothing too complicated, Elena laughed. Actually laughed. The occasional conspiracy? You make it sound like a hobby. Everyone needs a hobby, Marcus said with a grin. They stood in comfortable silence for a while, mother and son, ambassador and attaché, two people who had lived through something extraordinary and come out the other side changed but together. Marcus, Elena said quietly, yes, I am proud of you. What you did was terrifying and necessary and brave, but mostly I am proud that you chose mercy. That says more about who you are than anything else. Marcus looked at his mother. His eyes were soft, human. You taught me that, Mom, a long time ago. You said the measure of a person is not what they can do, but what they choose not to do. I have always remembered that. 6 months passed. The Galactic Council settled into a new normal with Earth as a full member. Trade agreements were signed. Cultural exchanges began. Humanity started to spread across the stars, not as conquerors, but as partners. But the galaxy had not forgotten. The story of Marcus Reeves spread like wildfire. Different species told it different ways, but the core was always the same. The human who could have destroyed everything but chose peace instead. They called him many things. The breaker of chains. The shadow diplomat. Doom in a suit, but Marcus did not care about the names. He went about his work quietly, attending meetings with his mother, taking notes, being useful, until the day a new threat emerged. Not political this time. Something worse. An unknown hostile force attacking council ships near the outer rim. 3 vessels destroyed. No survivors. No warning. The council held an emergency session. Military commanders presented options. Defense strategies. None of them felt adequate. This enemy was fast, brutal, and completely unknown. Counselor Theron stood up during a particularly tense moment. He looked around the chamber, then spoke carefully. Perhaps we need someone with unique expertise, someone who understands threats that others cannot see, someone who has proven themselves capable of the impossible. Every eye in the chamber turned to Marcus. He sat in his usual spot behind his mother, tablet in hand, looking up with mild surprise. Mr. Reeves, Theron continued, would you be willing to assist the council in investigating this threat? Not as a soldier, as a consultant, with full diplomatic protections and support. Marcus looked at his mother. Elena gave a slight nod. Your choice. Marcus stood up slowly. He straightened his tie. That careful, controlled movement that everyone in the galaxy now recognized. When Marcus Reeves adjusted his tie, things were about to get interesting. I would be honored to help, Counselor, but I have conditions. Name them. First, I work alone or with a small team of my choosing. Second, I have full access to all intelligence and resources. Third, my methods may be unconventional. You will trust me to do what is necessary. The council members exchanged glances. Then, one by one, they nodded. Agreed, Theron said. Marcus smiled. A polite, gentle smile. Then I should get started. Thank you for your trust. As he walked out of the chamber, whispers followed him again. But this time they were different. Not fear, not shock. Something else. Hope. Because the galaxy had learned something important. Humanity was dangerous, yes, capable of terrible things, but they were also the ones you wanted on your side when the darkness came.